Hello, everyone. Welcome to our poster design prep session. I'm Melissa Brand, and this is Charlotte Vandervoort. We're research and education librarians here. We're excited to delve into some. Apologies. We're excited to share some insights today with you on how to craft your scientific research poster. But before we get into that, let's take a minute to hear from Tom Lyons, our metadata librarian. He's going to talk about ORCiD.
Thanks, Melissa. My name is Tom Lyons. I'm the metadata librarian here at Gibson D. Lewis Library. And before we delve into the poster prep session, I want to spend a few minutes talking about ORCiD. So quickly, our questions for today: what is it? What are the benefits? How does HSC use ORCiD? How could you use it in the future? How do you create one? Where can you find more information? And how do you get help? So what is ORCiD? So ORCiD stands for Open Researcher and Contributor ID, and it is a unique identifier for researchers. So if we think about other unique identifiers in the publishing world, we have like the ISBN, which would uniquely identify a book, or a DOI, which would uniquely identify an article or a data set. So ORCiD is very similar. It's just that it uniquely identifies a person, and specifically a person that's engaging in research or scholarly activity. You can pronounce it ORCiD or ORCiD ID interchangeably. Either one is fine, acceptable. And an ORCiD consists of the 16-digit number, the actual ID, and the associated record or profile. And we will take a look at both of those here in just a second. There are other examples of unique IDs for researchers, one of which is, you may have heard of, it's a Scopus author ID. That is associated with Elsevier, a publishing company. However, we do encourage the use of ORCiD because it is open and non-proprietary. It is managed by a nonprofit organization that's made up of membership institutions, member institutions. And HSC is actually a voting member institution of ORCiD. So it's kind of important that we use ORCiD if we can. ORCiD is required by many funding agencies. So if you're getting a grant for your work, such as the NIH, so that's very important to use ORCiD in that process. And finally, ORCiD is persistent and very stable. So it can follow you through your career after you leave HSC or as you're changing jobs and moving forward in your career. So this is an ORCiD record, and I'll briefly run through the sections in the record. So you have up here at the top left, you have the number itself, the 16-digit number. That is the ORCiD ID. And then in the middle of the page, you have activities, and that's going to be where you spend the bulk of your time with your ORCiD record. So it's going to include employment information, education, professional activities. That could be like a committee membership or a professional organization that you're a part of. Funding, so that's going to be your grants that you have. And then the big section will be your works. So those will be publications, articles, professional presentations, even posters, things like that. And then the final section I want to point out is the top under name. And this is the record for Dr. Cunningham, who's our Associate Vice President for Research here at HSC. And so the name section is very important. You can see he publishes under J. Thomas Cunningham. And then he also has underneath that, it says also known as Tom Cunningham. And so we'll talk about the importance of that here in the next couple of slides. So what are the benefits? Why would I want to have an ORCiD? So mainly you want to get credit for your work. So make sure that your research and scholarly output is credited to you and that there's no confusion for other researchers that have the same or similar names. And sticking with the name theme, it does provide name flexibility. You can tie all the research together, even if you've published under different names. So for Dr. Cunningham, he publishes under J. Thomas Cunningham, but since he included the Tom Cunningham, that's searchable. And if you search Tom Cunningham in ORCiD, you will find his record, even though his formal name is publishes under as J. Thomas. Okay. One of the best parts about ORCiD is the visibility settings, the privacy settings. You can basically decide which settings for each piece of information in your account, which you want it to be private or public. We obviously encourage it to be public so that you can be discovered by other researchers, but you do have that control. Okay, and finally, let me scroll down just a little bit. The ORCiD profile data, the information in your record is portable and it's increasingly interoperable with other publishing platforms. So that's going to save you a lot of time and effort and duplicate typing and data entry. So for example, let's say you publish an article in a journal and the publisher asks for your ORCiD. So the publisher can then pull in information from your ORCiD record. So like your affiliation or your grant information, and then pre-populate those submission forms for you so that you're saving that time typing in that additional information into those fields. It can also work in the opposite direction. So if you're entering unique information into your publishing platform for your journal, such as your title of your article or your abstract, that information can flow the opposite direction and populate into your ORCiD record, into your works section, which is your publications. That just has to kind of be set up with that publisher and with ORCiD for that to work, but that does help save a lot of time for you. Those are some of the main benefits. So how would you use ORCiD at HSC? Pretty simple. There's a few ways. You can use it at Research Appreciation Day, obviously. So you can include it in your abstract for Research Appreciation Day. You can also include it on your posters, Charlotte and we'll talk about in a few minutes. We also have our Scholarly repository, which is UNT HSC Scholar. You can anything that you would create or present in UNT HSC Scholar, you can include your ORCiD there. An example of that would be your thesis or dissertation filing. You can work it on your thesis or dissertation. And of course, if you're out there publishing in journals, professional journals of publication, you would include your ORCiD there, even as a student. So how you might use it in the future, we've talked a lot about this already, so I will run through these pretty quick. When you're publishing, to make sure you get credit for your work. In grant applications, it's required by the NIH and other funding agencies, saving you time with data entry. For faculty, this is important for promotion and tenure. You would like to have all of your research and publication and professional information in one place. ORCiD is a great place to organize that. And one thing that a lot of people don't consider is building connections. So you can search ORCiD for other people that are having the same types of specialties or publications that you're engaged in, and then reach out to those people for a collaboration. And if you make your data public, they can also do the same and reach out to you to collaborate on projects. How do you create an ORCiD? It's very simple. You can scan the QR code here, or you just go to orcid.org/register. And basically just enter your name as you would when you're publishing. So remember Dr. Cunningham, the way he entered his name. And you're always going to want to use your HSC email to start off with, and then add a personal email. It's very important so that when you leave HSC and you no longer have access to your HSC email, you won't lose access to your ORCiD account. Okay. And this screen will notify you if there are other ORCiDs that have the same or similar name as you. So you just want to review this so that you don't create a duplicate ORCiD, just to make sure that there aren't any matches before you proceed. Finally, you'll just do your password and click next. And then here's where you'll choose your visibility. And it looks like about 87% of users choose everyone can view my information. But you do have that right to select for each piece of data who can view your information and make it private or public. Once you create the account, you can immediately go to the ORCiD website and see your profile. You can add the data at your own pace in terms of the works and your employment information and all of that. There's no hurry, but you want to do it as soon as you can. You'll get an email to all of your addresses to verify your account. You can find more information at info.orcid.org/researchers or just orcid.org, or you can go to the library website or ask a librarian. This is my information, and I have my card too. If you need it, to reach out to me. I can help you at any time with your ORCiD. And that's it. And we're actually going to hold questions to the end of the session. Thank you, and hand it back to Melissa.
Thanks, Tom. Let's get into our poster session. What is a research poster? It's display of research often used during professional conferences or academic presentations. Now, keep in mind, your poster will be judged on how it looks as well as the content. That goes for RAD too. I learned that today. So let's look at an example of a research poster. There's a couple of reasons why this is maybe not as effective as it could be. So for first things, the background image makes it hard to read, makes it overwhelming. All the text boxes are different colors for no apparent reason. That's also distracting. And they're different sizes. So you don't know which way to flow through this poster. Where are you going to read? Where should you go next? And then we have this image of a little guinea pig on a scale. It's kind of cute, but for this type of poster, a better picture would be your actual setup. I could go on and on about what's wrong with this poster, but I think your time would be better spent to learn how to avoid these mistakes. So when you're making your poster, you have a couple of different options. You can start from scratch, or we have some templates available. If you go the DIY route, just make sure to set your page up to standard poster size, 56 inches by 36 inches. Or we have templates available through collaboration with Marcom that will ensure you get a professional and polished look and kind of more a guided approach to creating your poster. So what needs to be included in your poster? You're going to need a title, a subtitle, body text, images, graphics, and tables. Well, possibly not tables, but each of these components is going to play a crucial role in engaging your audience and effectively displaying your research. The title is going to grab their attention. The body text presents your findings in detail, and those are going to be supported by images and graphics, as well as making it more visually appealing. So the 4 elements we're going to go over today are typography, balance, color, and layout. Typography is up first, and that's just a fancy way of saying font choice. So the rule of thumb with this is you want to use no more than 2 fonts. Generally, one will be for your titles and one will be for your body text. Anything more than this is going to be visually overwhelming and is just not necessary. Now, the font you choose is dependent on how you're presenting your poster. Are you going to print it out? Is it going to be visual? Is it going to be digital? Apologies. So for printed works, we suggest a sans serif font. These are going to have the little extra feet or extra strokes at the bottom. These help create an implied line that help the reader follow along. So these again are going to be best for your printed works. For digital works, we recommend a sans serif font. They don't have the little extra strokes or feet, and so this is going to be a good choice for RAD. When choosing your font, you can't go wrong with the classics. Arial, Times New Roman, Helvetica, these are all great choices. We recommend the following sizes for each table or text-based element in your poster. Your readability is going to be your most important consideration when choosing a font. You don't want to make it too small, too distracting. It needs to be easy to read. So remember, keep it simple. No more than 2 fonts, one for your titles and one for your body paragraphs or body text. And then stick to the classics. Arial, Times New Roman, Helvetica, all great options. So next we have balance. In this context, we're using balance to refer to a variety of visual elements. In other words, your poster should not just be all text. This looks boring and people aren't going to want to look at it for very long. So where possible, include images, graphs, or tables to bring a variety and communicate your content in different ways. You should import your images as JPEGs or PNGs, preferably 300 dots per inch. And this is going to prevent your images from looking pixelated. As a reminder, whether your image is open source or copyrighted, always give credit to the photographer or author. This is just a professional courtesy, and it's going to protect you from plagiarism. Okay, so where can you get these pictures? Some resources for open source images are going to be Unsplash or Stocksy. And a good website for open source medical images is going to be OpenEye. The library also has several paid subscriptions, such as Medical Access Medicine Suite or Anatomy TV. And you can access these through the library. They have downloaded images available, or you could use BioRender, which is available to you through the Division of Academic Innovation. And if you want to know more about BioRender, they'll be doing a webinar tomorrow at noon. All right, so remember, your poster should be more than just words. Adding balance increases engagement. And add balance to increase engagement with images and graphs, and avoid copyrighted materials. And always, always, always cite those sources. Give the photographer credit. Pass it on to Charlotte.
Okay, so why are you in this class? We're talking to you about the elements that can basically make or break your research poster. These elements can really be used to draw your audience into your poster or repel them, as you saw with the poster that we gave you as an example of what not to do. Specifically for color, you want to think about not only adding color in, but also being judicious with your color and having those white spaces that emphasize titles and different parts of your research poster. So for color specifically, you want to avoid large areas of very dark colors, black. Not only is it hard to read and can be very busy, like that example poster, but also dense areas of ink can create weaknesses in your poster paper, and it can take a long time to dry when you print a poster out. You also want to consider matching the colors that you use in your poster with the imagery that you use. So for example, if you use certain colors on your charts and graphs for your research in your poster, you might want to consider adding those same colors in as elements in your research poster as well. Font, borders, etc. Some institutions do require you to use their brand colors and logos. For RAD, we highly recommend that you utilize the official brands and HSD colors for your posters. And if you want more details about the brands and logos, you can visit the Office of Marketing and Communications. But specifically about color, these are the HSD colors. We've included convenient color codes of all different types so that you can recreate those colors on your posters. We have the navy color, which is graphite, teal, and then modern green. So feel free to use those on your posters should you need a color palette. I'm going to talk to you about layout. If you recall on the example poster, the layout was all over the place. It was all different sections. It's not easy to read. You want to be sure that your layout follows the natural progression of reading. For example, in Western culture, we tend to read from top to bottom and then go over to the next side. So that you want to follow that with your layout. Specifically in the layout, you've already heard about ORCiD. Where might you want to put your ORCiD on your poster? Okay, I would suggest you put it somewhere near your submitter's name. You, as the person who submitted the poster, is the main person, and you would want that ORCiD ID somewhere underneath your name. It could be in between your name and your affiliation, or even underneath the affiliated organization. But do put it somewhere. You have another option. You can include your ORCiD ID as a QR code at one of the bottom corners. A lot of the templates that we're suggesting that you might use to start from already have a QR code. Be sure that if you're not using that QR code, that you remove it. Make sure that the QR code that you have on your poster goes to something about your poster and your research. It could be supplemental information, or it could go to your ORCiD ID profile. On this, you see an example of what to do, but you see not only we're talking about balance and it has all the components, but you see symmetry. You see all the sections look symmetrical, they're the same size, the margins are consistent, and the edges are consistent. You want to be sure that you're being consistent throughout the formatting of your layout. In summary for the layout, remember not to crowd your research poster with too much information, specifically text information, but even too much imagery can be a problem. So just be judicious with your words and your imagery and make sure you're getting to the point in your poster. You also want to be conscious of the margins, not only because it makes it easier to read and look good, but also because if you get your information too close to the margins, when you go to print it or save it, the information could be cut off. Now, specifically for RAD, we wanted to remind you that your poster must be a PDF file and its size cannot exceed 700 megabytes. Also a reminder that posters and videos are due by 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, March 19th. So your RAD posters, you have virtually a month to get your design ready and saved and formatted to your specifications. Now, for printing, you do not have to print your RAD posters. Obviously, you're submitting a file. However, in your future careers, you may need to print a poster. So if you need to print a poster and you're still at HSC, we use one-stop printing, and you can find more information about that at the Office of Marketing and Communications, along with those templates that we talked about before. We have also included several resources we think are relevant to creating your research poster. We have a RAD playlist that has a whole bunch of different videos on the same topics we talked about today and additional topics. We also have a research poster guide that has some of the elements that we talked about today with additional information as well, and a link to our scientific writing guide, which will help you getting that research into the Word format that you want. Basically, we just want to remind you to be intentional with your design choices. It can really make or break your poster, and we want you to think about it in terms of what makes somebody want to learn about your research. Finally, we're here for questions always, but if you have questions on the research that's in your poster, you will need to contact your mentor. We're here if you have questions about design or components of your RAD poster. You can email us, you can visit us next door in Lib 222. You can chat on the library website, or you can call us. And I think now we're going to open it up for questions. So do you have any questions about ORCiD or any of the things we talked about today? Yes. Go ahead.
When it comes to like case studies, would you say that the format is pretty similar to just like regular?
I'm not certain on that. I might have to get back to you on that. But I would imagine it has many of the elements that we already went over. So you might need it instead of like, you might need some background information instead of another title, but I can get back to you on that for sure. Anybody else? Yep.
We'll be sharing this PowerPoint.
We will. We will share it with everybody who's registered and probably even the wait listed people. And additionally, that RAD playlist that you saw, this is being recorded, and so it will be put on the RAD playlist as well. But you will definitely get the PowerPoint so that you can have those links that you guys were trying to catch. Yes.
In terms of like the poster, like, you know, there's like text boxes where people like kind of type like a paragraph.
Mhm.
Is that advisable, or would like bullet points be more advisable for information?
Honestly, it's probably a judgment call, but most of the posters I see don't have bullet points. At least in it.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Most of it's recommended to do in sentence structure.
Any other questions?
Sure. Is it okay to like put a QR code that directly links to the literature? Like there was
Literature that you've published or literature that's just about the subject that you're talking
about
about?
the subject
I mean,
for more information.
maybe that might be permissible. It's always good if you're going to have something like a QR code. It pertains to your research. If you haven't published something, it could be supplemental research, like an article that also gives more information or more layman's terms, depending on your audience. Anybody else?
Where do we put our mentor's name? Do we put it at the top, right next to our name?
I haven't heard about mentors being on the posters.
So just.
But maybe they are, if they're listed, I guess they would be given some sort of a title like the author.
Yeah, they could be, they're an author, they could be listed.
Yeah. But I can double check for you if you'd like. Anybody else? Okay, just real quick poll. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a section on the poster for like citation and stuff, or is that like not included on the poster?
Some posters include it. You're talking to librarians, we always say cite your sources, and a reference section would be ideal, but if your research requires a lot of references, obviously that's not gonna fit. So that might be a good place to put, for references, here's our QR code to the reference list thing. If you wanna save some space, but you wanna also make sure you're not plagiarizing and giving credit, then you can use that QR code for that.